Right. He was a ruthless loan shark who exploited the poor and left the most vulnerable in fear of their lives. But tonight, John Keeley, known locally as John Boy, is starting a prison sentence.
The 36-year-old used an army of enforcers to make people pay interest of up to 2,500% and in the process made himself a multimillionaire. Our reporter Yunus Muller is outside his house now. Yunus?
Unlike many of his victims, John Keeley lived a comfortable lifestyle, even buying his £800,000 house here in Derbyshire by paying in cash. But his multi-million-pound illegal lending business was based on preying on the most vulnerable families in Manchester.
One terrified victim from East Manchester now lives in a secret location and can't even contact her own family. Why? Because she borrowed £700 from Keeley to buy her wedding dress.
I've lost everything. I've lost all my family. I've got a son buried up in Manchester. Can't go to the cemetery no more. None of my family know where I live. I can't let them know where I live because I'm too frightened.
Keeley gave his victims money from a roll of £20 notes in the back of his Range Rover. No paperwork and, crucially, no mention of a final figure. But there followed many threats of violence.
I knew that he meant business. He wasn't going to go away. He said he wasn't going to go away. His enforcers said, "You're not going to get rid of us that easy." So, I mean, what do you do?
Over a 4.5-year period, he had more than 1,200 customers and made £3 million, charging interest rates of up to 2,500%. Earlier this year, loan shark Paul Nicholson was jailed for blackmailing, assaulting and even raping one of his victims. And there are more loan sharks out there.
We know that credit is difficult to come by at the moment, even more so, than before. But the worst part about this is that they are targeting the most vulnerable members of the community.
Keeley tried to conceal his activities using another legal company, but Judge Adrian Smith described him as a ruthless individual who had displayed a high degree of sophistication.
I was absolutely stupid. I just fell in a trap, but once you get a loan off these people, you never get out of it. You might as well say ta-ra to your life, ta-ra to your home, ta-ra to everything, because you never get away from these people.
Tonight, the 36-year-old is beginning a 5-year sentence for offences including blackmail and illegal money lending.
John Keeley managed to bypass the financial regulatory system because he targeted those who couldn't get credit, and that is a big problem. But if you speak to his victims, they'll tell you that temptation could ultimately lead to ruin.
Yunus. Well, a short time ago...
To find out later.
Thank you, Andy.
But first this evening, parking tickets and parking fines are guaranteed to polarise the population wherever you live. However, one deterrent used in 2 areas in the northwest is proving more controversial than most. The so-called spy cars, vehicles with camera recording equipment, are used to issue parking tickets.
Yes, one victim was Rachel Johnson from New Brighton in Wirral. She was parked outside her shop and was fined, but refused to pay. Now she's won an important legal victory, one which could allow many more motorists facing similar fines to get refunds. Yunus Muller reports.
Twice a day, Rachel Johnson parks on double yellow lines outside her off-licence for business purposes. So when she received 3 parking tickets in 1 week, after a council car took this photograph, she refused to pay.
I felt like my privacy had been invaded, and we were just going about our business, trying to run a business, and I knew that we were allowed to park here to unload.
The Wirral Borough Council is the latest to use what some have called a spy car, vehicles with periscope-mounted cameras to enforce parking regulations.
The car can cover a large area, but it can also be useful in busy shopping areas where motorists can easily evade traffic wardens on foot. But in the case of Rachel Johnson, the tribunal ruled in her favour. Her parking tickets were invalid because she had a legitimate business purpose, and also because of a lack of signs warning motorists that they could be photographed.
According to some, this paves the way for many more motorists to challenge their tickets.
CCTV camera doesn't record whether loading or unloading is taking place, whether a blue badge is being displayed, whether there's any exemptions in the traffic order. A parking attendant does, and he will know the beat. And what's happening is that we're getting this big brother state where you're going to be clipped effectively for the most minor of contraventions.
In a statement today, Wirral Council said anyone who has received a parking ticket and feel they have a valid reason to appeal is able to do so through the appeals process detailed. Each case is reviewed on its own merits. Today, warning signs could be seen.
We shouldn't have to come to that, should we, really, when you think about it? But if it's got to be done, it's got to be done.
They don't know the reasons why they're parked. There could have been a breakdown.
People are only stopping for 2-3 minutes. I mean, they're not stopping here all day, are they? If they're going to stop here all day, they're going to park in the car park.
Rachel Johnson has secured an important legal victory. Local authorities may have to think again over exactly how they use their surveillance cars. Eunice Muller, BBC North West Tonight, New Brighton.
Well, earlier I spoke to Tim Cowan from NSL Services, who run the cameras for Wirral Council, and I asked him if this wasn't a rather sneaky way to monitor motorists.
I can't agree that they're sneaky, and I can't agree that they're not visible. They're very brightly coloured. They've got lots of signage demonstrating what's going on. They're a smart car, which is still quite an unusual and eye-catching car, and they've got a 30-foot periscope on top.
But it wasn't that clear, was it, that these cars were in operation? Because that was part of the tribunal's judgment, that there wasn't enough signage to suggest they were operating in that area.
Well, the tribunal commented that we didn't provide enough evidence that that the signage was compliant. We noted the adjudicator's comments, although we were slightly baffled by that. As far as we're concerned, the signage is 100% legally compliant, and we think that it's perfectly obvious that CCT enforcement is happening there, and it's a very useful way of improving road safety.
Well, I was talking earlier to Neil Heron from parkingappeals.com, who is opposed to the use of these vehicles, and he says, and I quote him here, that they cannot record whether loading or unloading is taking place, whether blue badges are being displayed, or whether there are any exceptions in the traffic order being displayed in that area.
That's absolute nonsense. They take video evidence. They're operated by video camera operators. They're not like congestion charge cameras or cameras that just record number plates. These are very high quality video cameras that can record any evidence that's required in order to demonstrate that an infringement has taken place. So, for example, in this case, there was...
didn't they?
I'm sorry, can I finish, please? What I'm trying to explain is that the evidence that we can gather is designed to demonstrate whether loading or unloading is taking place. We're pretty clear that we did gather evidence demonstrating that loading and unloading wasn't taking place under these circumstances.
The tribunal didn't agree.
The tribunal didn't agree, and that is ultimately the reason why you have tribunals. We're the enforcement contractor, and our job is to gather quality evidence. If we say, as far as we're concerned, that ticket is genuine, an infringement did take place, and the member of the public doesn't agree, of course they have the right to appeal to the tribunal, and that's absolutely right. If the tribunal takes a different view, well, there's not a lot we can do about that.
Tim Cowan, thank you very much. So, what do you think? Is this just a cynical way of raising money for councils, or does it matter how the evidence is gathered if a car is parked illegally? Or have you been a victim of overzealous parking wardens? Let us know on the usual email address, nwt@bbc.co.uk, and hopefully we'll read some of them out at the end of the programme. She was described as a manipulative woman who undermined the institution of marriage. But today, a self-confessed bigamist walked free. Emily Horn married 5 times, but she was always still legally married to her first husband. Her latest, Ashley Baker from Chadderton, only found out on the way to their honeymoon. Eunice Muller was in court today. And Eunice, first of all, tell us what the court heard about these 5 marriages.
Emily Horn, a former glamour model, is used to getting attention, but her taste for marriage started in 1996 with her childhood sweetheart, Paul Rigby. Now, while he was away serving his country, he was a soldier, she moved on to her second husband, while still being legally married to her first husband. That second husband was Sean Cunningham, and also that was followed by her third husband, Chris Barrett. At one stage, it's said that she, in fact, lived with husband number 2 and husband number 3. They then followed husband number 4, James Matthews. Afterwards, she was in fact convicted of bigamy in 2004. She served a 6-month sentence, but then in 2007, she married Ashley Baker from Chadderton. Today, after being allowed to walk free, she gave this reaction.
The reaction is, that time I got a divorce.
And are you relieved that you're not going back to jail? I was prepared to go back to jail. I walked into the police station and made the statement myself. That is true. So what has he got to say about a man you'd rather go to prison than be with him? You work it out.
Well, her current husband, as you said, is Ashley Baker, though they are now, as I understand it, separated. But his family were in court today, and I know you spoke to them after the verdict.
Well, according to his family, Ashley Baker was besotted by Emily Horne. He found out on honeymoon. He was actually on his way to his honeymoon when she confessed. He kept quiet, but then later the truth emerged when she made a false allegation of assault against him. And this is what they said to me after court.
No, we're just annoyed because she's got off scot-free for what she's done again, where she was sent down before, and that's just so annoying that she may go out and do it again.
He did love her, she did manipulate him. She said she was pregnant about 5 times, so he grieved for babies that he thought he was having, and she didn't. He's lost out on a lot. He's now in a lot of debt as well because of what she's done.
Well, she has already, as you mentioned earlier, served 1 prison sentence for bigamy. So how did she escape jail this time, very briefly?
Well, she has a personality disorder, and Judge Coker here at Manchester Crown Court said that she had made good progress in the last 6 months because of the medication she was on. And despite being manipulative and undermining the institution of marriage, he felt that a 10-month sentence should be suspended for 2 years to give her a chance to move on.
Thank you very much indeed, Eunice.
These are difficult days for Junaid Khan's family. The world, they say, has collapsed following his death.
Knowing that he will never return breaks our hearts in 1,000,000 pieces.
Try to be brave.
He was our strength and support.
The 21-year-old from Oldham died from multiple gunshot wounds after he was targeted in a car park in Chadderton.
He was very popular. He was very popular in the community. He was helping old people who was used to come to our shop, and he was used to take their stuff to the cars. He was very famous to little children.
His death is not being linked to other recent shootings.
I used to tell him, to take care of yourself and do not stand up for everyone. I said, don't try to be a Jesus. This is what I told him a couple of times. He said, Daddy, I'm okay. I'm not a troublemaker,
Greater Manchester Police have no motive, but what they do have is the sighting of a Mitsubishi Shogun here on Block Lane shortly before the shooting and later found burnt out. And that remains their main line of inquiry.
So if there's anyone with any information to come forward, because if they don't, we won't rest, and Junaid's soul won't be at peace as well.
Please come forward and tell us who killed him, please.
Eunice Muller in Chadderton for BBC Northwest Tonight.
There's nothing quite like coming to the coast. There's always that question, isn't there? What should I do about the weather? Should I bring the umbrella? Or will I need my hat and sunblock?
Hello everyone, I'm Honor. And
Here in Blackpool, they want to make that decision easier by posting their very own weather opinion on the internet.
We just wanted to do something fun to help our visitors decide what they could do before they arrive in Blackpool. So they've got a feel for what the weather's going to be like.
So what do? You just look up at the sky and go,
Yeah, we look up at the sky, and we use many of our ambassadors in the town, and they give an accurate reading.
The report is uploaded once a day, but with no maps and very little science. What about the official weather forecast?
Of course, for a place like Blackpool, I think connecting people back to what the weather is like, giving people a sense of the local weather is a very good thing. That's not to say that I think the national and regional weather forecasts are poor. I actually think the Met Office does a great job.
Well, I've always believed that the weather is a little different here in Blackpool because it's out on a little peninsula, if you will.
Because you're actually here, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're actually underneath it all. Yeah. But the weathermen, where are they? They're not in Blackpool, are they?
Would you trust it?
No, definitely not.
Generally, if the cows are laying down, I think that's, they tend to look outside. Yeah, it's going to rain.
I don't care what the weatherman says when the weatherman says it's raining.
When it comes to the weather, I'm not taking any risks. The sunblock, the hat, and the umbrella stays with me. Eunice Muller, BBC Northwest Tonight in Blackpool.